Okay, so we're going to look at some explanations for why division by zero is undefined. And sort of one of the interesting things is that division by zero is undefined in actually two different ways, depending on what you're dividing zero into. So the way that we're going to talk about this is in terms of equivalent multiplication problems. So let's sort of set the stage for this relationship between multiplication and division with sort of a well-defined, sort of more standard type of problem. So suppose I have 3 times 4, and I say that's equal to 12. That's my multiplication problem. Now, this essentially produces two kinds of division problems, two kinds of related division problems. So I can take my answer 12 and I can divide it by 3 to get 4, or I can take my answer and divide it by 4 to get 3. So this is the relationship between multiplication and division that we're going to rely on for this discussion. So now let's think about a multiplication problem where we get division by 0. So let's start with the special case of 0 divided by 0. 0 divided by 0 is equal to what? Well, this is actually a kind of complicated question, because what is the related multiplication problem that we could use to obtain this division problem? Well, turns out that there's a lot of them. So we could say 3 times 0 is 0. And that would give us 0 divided by 0 is 3, according to our previous analysis. Well, but I could also say 5 times 0 is 0. And so what if I use that to write my 0 divided by 0 equivalent division problem? That would say that 0 divided by 0 was 5. And in fact, I could substitute any value in here, any number times 0 is equal to 0. And so division by 0 could in fact be A for anything. So division 0 divided by 0 is actually a special case. It's undefined because we have no idea what it is. It could be anything at all. Any number divided times 0 is 0. And so 0 divided by 0, we have no idea what it is. It could be anything at all. Now, what about any other number divided by 0? Let's say 3 divided by 0. What does that equal? Well, let's think about this in terms of our multiplication problem. So let's suppose that we have our division problem and we claim that 3 divided by 0 is equal to some number. Let's call it x. Okay, well, what's the equivalent multiplication problem? Well, the equivalent multiplication problem would be that x is probably a bad choice here because I want to use the times key. So let's call it a. A times 0 is equal to 3. No. So here's our problem. We've previously established that A times 0, any number times 0 is 0. And here we're saying there's some number times 0 that's equal to 3. That doesn't make any sense. That's because there is no such answer. There is no such number A where if you multiply it by 0, you get 3. Or any other number that you divide by 0. So again, I can put any number up here. If it's not 0, then I get a multiplication statement that says that some number times 0 is equal to a number which is not 0, and that is impossible. So any number divided by 0 is undefined. If it's not 0, it's undefined because there is no such number. But if it's 0 over 0, it's because it's not just one answer, it's every possible answer. But in the end, we just simply say there is undefined. Now, if you ever go on and take calculus, then there will be times where pieces will be moving and we will have to work with 0 over 0 and turn it into something particular. But it can be anything depending on what is moving and how it's moving. It's kind of complicated. Don't worry about it if you're not ever going to take calculus. But this is sort of the origins of our zero, our sort of undefined statement. But they're undefined in two different ways. I think it's the fact that 0 divided by 0 can be anything is kind of fascinating, but there just simply is no statement where we can multiply something by 0 and get a number which is not 0.